Hello, everybody. Welcome to Be Science Literate. I'm your host, Andy Epton. Today, we're going to be talking about vaccines because, once again, it is flu season. So, get your flu shot. That's it. No, seriously, get your flu shot. Uh, it is flu season, and with the pandemic currently in full bloom, because, well, things have not slowed down at all. Um, Flu shot is even more important than it has ever been. The flu is a virus, not that unlike the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus, but they are different. The flu is what we call an orthomyxovirus, so it is different. It has different little projections off of its or protuberances, whatever you want to call them, off of its the central casing or body of the virus, and that is what causes all the problems. The way the flu kind of attacks cells and causes them to explode with more flu viruses. The coronavirus has protuberances as well, but they are different, and thus we have a different system of virus there. But the flu virus or the flu vaccine is one of the best vaccines that we have out there because it provides a level of protection against all strains of flu. Even if it doesn't necessarily have the flu strain that you end up getting in the virus or in the vaccine itself, it will give you some protection against that particular strain so that you will become less sick than you would if you didn't get the vaccine at all. So there are three types of flu. There's the A, the B, and the C. And then there are subtypes within those. So usually a flu vaccine can be a kind of a trio set so that you get three strains in one vaccine, or you can get a four strain in one vaccine. And the four strain typically has two A's and two B's. C strain does not infect humans, or at least if it doesn't cause massive problems and cannot be spread from human to human. So you're not really at risk of a C strain. But the A strain is probably the most common and the one that's probably the most severe. The B strain is a little less severe, but we do protect against it simply because it offers, again, some protection against getting severely ill. So we classify flu based on two variables, the H and the N. Um, I'm going to butcher these names because I am not a biologist or a virologist or an epidemiologist, but I know the H stands for hemagglutinin, and I think the N is neuraminidase. And there's different combinations of both H and N that influenza viruses can have. The most deadly of all of them has been the H1N1 of the 1918-1919 outbreak. But there are other strains as well that cause a lot of problems. So what epidemiologists and virologists and the National Institutes of Health and CDC do is that they put together statistics on which combination of H and N is going to be most prevalent in the next coming year, and then they create a vaccine to protect against those. Now, that's not to say that those are the only strains of virus that are going to be out there. You can still get the flu, but again, if you get the vaccine, you're going to get a much less severe case of the flu, and you will recover a lot faster. But if you don't get the vaccine, then you're going to get the full brunt of that particular virus. And if it's a severe virus, it's not going to be pretty. Hopefully, you get a mild form, but there's no guarantee that that's going to be the case. So, the flu mutates so rapidly because it's an RNA virus with very few genes. And every time it reproduces itself, the RNA cannot correct any mistakes that it makes in its replication. So it can actually kill itself or make itself inert, but it can also make itself more lethal and more devious or more camouflage to the immune system just in a simple replication. So, for every time you get infected with the flu, it's going to reproduce inside your body. And your body needs to have a blueprint of an antibody to attack the outside protuberances of that particular virus. It needs to fit just right, or at least relatively correctly. That's how the different strains are protected from or with the flu vaccine. So when the flu replicates, it creates a lot of mutations. It's a very simple RNA virus, so very few genes. So there's a lot of chances of mistakes to come about. And again, there's no proofreading. There's fewer genes. It's an RNA. They don't have the proofreading capability. So it creates a lot of mutations. And some of the, as I mentioned, some of the mutations kind of just make the virus inactive or ineffective, but a few change it tremendously, which is why we're constantly getting new vaccines every single year. You have to get a vaccine. Why? Because the flu mutates so rapidly. It mutates ridiculously fast and constantly. It's constantly mutating. So we're constantly getting new vaccines. And the CDC, the NIH, as much as people may right now hate them or at least distrust them, you can't. This is not the time to mistrust or distrust the people who literally have your lives in their hands, protecting you from these particular pathogens. You may be politically geared toward not trusting certain members of the government, but this is not the time to be doing things like that. Lots of people's lives are at risk. So get your flu vaccine. It doesn't hurt. Well, it might. Um, it hurts like the next day from just muscle soreness, but it's not going to give you the flu. That's a common myth. It's a very common myth, and I wish it would go away, but it cannot give you the flu. Again, the interior of the flu is what causes the problems. Okay, so it's the RNA that causes the problems. It hijacks your genetic code in your cells and tells it to produce more flu or more influenza. Without that, it can't do it. It can infect your cell, but it can't actually do anything. And so basically what a flu vaccine has is just the casing, the outside, the shell, whatever you want to call it. And the body learns how to fight that particular form. And so if you do get the virus, it has the ability to fight it and get rid of it so that it can't infect you or at least make you very sick. By not getting the flu vaccine, your body is a completely empty shell or a blank slate, and the flu virus can have a field day inside your body. There's nothing to protect you. Your immune system cannot recognize the flu virus until it's too late, and by then it's probably mutated to the point where even if it did recognize it, it's not going to do much good. That's why the flu is so bad and why it's so deadly. So the flu vaccine contains or is essentially a dead virus or an inactive virus or attenuated, whatever you want to call it, virus where it's essentially empty. It gives your body the chance to learn how to fight off this pathogen and not get sick. So you may come down with a slight headache. I know I had a horrible headache that day I got the flu vaccine. Whether they were related is, I don't really care if they were related or not. It didn't affect me terribly. I just went to bed earlier and slept. It's usually how I fight off a really bad headache. Of course, I took like Tylenol or something, but it may have been caused by the flu vaccine. But honestly, I can live with a headache and I'm fine because I'd rather have a headache than the flu. I would rather my son scream bloody murder as he's getting a shot than getting the flu, no matter what he said. He actually said he'd rather have the flu, but that was not true. He just didn't want to get the shot. Uh, it's a very simple thing for you to do. And I know the stories are out there. I've heard them all. I've heard them from students, I've heard them from colleagues, I've heard them from family that I got the flu I got the flu vaccine one time, and then I got the flu. And so I'm never getting the flu vaccine again. That's ridiculous. That is like the dumbest thing in the world. That's almost akin to saying I got in a car wreck this one time and it wasn't my fault, but I'm never getting in a car again. I'm never driving again. Well, I'm sorry, but how do you go about your life like that? You have to go do these things. You have to go through with these things. Getting the flu vaccine is the safest thing you can possibly do with regard to the flu virus. Just get your vaccine. It won't hurt you. It won't give you the flu. It cannot give you the flu. Of all the things that it can do, cause muscle soreness, cause us a mild headache, or a mild fever, even maybe even make you feel run down. It cannot give you the flu. Okay, we're long past those days of using a live flu virus or even a slightly weakened flu virus to give you a vaccine. We don't have to do that anymore. Some vaccines contain something along those lines, but not the flu vaccine. So there's nothing really stopping you from getting it. If you have insurance, then you're capable of getting it. If you have the ability to get it, please, please, please do. There's it's going to be a very smart decision, especially in this day of the pandemic where you have a lot of people getting sick. The cases are spiking yet again because we're spending more time indoors now because of, well, it's colder. And that's why flu season actually exists. People spend time indoors during the cold weather. More incidents of spreading flu. Schools are opening up. My son just started school today, going face to face. Luckily, he had the flu vaccine. Unfortunately, there's no vaccine for SARS-CoV-2 yet, but hopefully he's going to wear his mask all day, and the other kids in this class are going to wear their masks, and everybody will be fine. But it's a scary situation. Which brings me to basically the second topic of the day, and that is that the flu is not SARS-CoV-2. COVID-19 is not the flu. Just because that they have similar symptoms in the sense that they can both cause pneumonia, they both cause fever, they both cause headaches and body aches, does not mean they're the same. We call the common cold without giving a name to the virus that causes it. The rhinovirus is the chief amongst them, but there are other viruses as well. The reason we don't call it a single thing, or the reason we can't give it a single name, like this virus or this virus, is because they all cause similar symptoms. The symptoms of a cold, runny nose, stuffy nose, headaches, cough, mild fever, maybe just feeling run down. That's a cold. The cold is not a disease necessarily. It's the symptoms from an infection of one of many viruses. So that's kind of what's happening here. Just because they have similar symptoms does not mean they are the same. And no, hospitals are not calling flu infections COVID-19 to get more money. That's a conspiracy that is absolutely unfounded. There are too many people out there, too many doctors who know the difference between COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, or the influenza virus. There are differences. They are different. You can run tests to basically show what virus caused what. You don't have to just go, well, he had a fever and he had headaches and body aches. He either had the flu or COVID-19. Let's go with COVID-19. That's not how things work. Okay. The medical profession is not doing that. Are there some people out there doing that? I don't know, honestly. There are bad people everywhere that do bad things for really, really weird reasons. But the significant portion of the medical community is not participating in this, in the sense that they are not intentionally calling flu suffering COVID-19 suffering just so that they can somehow get more money. I don't know where this money is coming from, given that the federal government is actually actively trying to ignore COVID-19 and the spikes and outbreaks and the like around the country. We're seeing spikes like we haven't seen before. The country is experiencing record highs in cases, and it has nothing to do with testing. Okay, I saw somebody say if you have cancer, you've got cancer whether or not they test for it, and that's the same with this. The reason we see that there are people who are testing positive is they are positive. We're testing them and we're finding they're positive. They were positive before we tested them. So in a way, sure, if you test less, you're going to have less positive cases, but that doesn't mean that the number of cases are actually going to go down. It just means that you won't know that there are that many cases. It's being intentionally ignorant. And we don't want to be doing that. We want to make sure we find the people who are testing positive and isolate them, get them out of the public, get them out of society, and quarantine them so that they cannot infect anybody else. Just because we're we're testing more, we're finding more because they are out there. Okay. You can't go find something unless you look for it. And we're finding it because it's out there. It is in a large number of people. We have over 7 million cases so far this pandemic in our country alone. We have over 220,000 deaths in our country alone from this particular disease. It's out there, it's spreading. Wear your mask. Is a mask 100% effective? No, nothing is 100% effective unless you want to live in a cave with your basically isolated from every single person from the moment the pandemic started until the moment it is declared completely over and done with. Then maybe that's the safest place to be. But honestly, nobody's doing that. Nobody can do that. You can't function like that. So nothing is 100% safe. As sad as that may be, it's just the truth of the matter. But you can significantly reduce your exposure risk by simply wearing a mask wherever you go. Even if you are visiting, even if there's nobody around, if you leave the house, wear a mask. That's going to significant, especially if you're indoors, wear a mask because again, it's going to significantly reduce your risk of getting it. It's not going to guarantee you not getting it. Nothing can do that. Not even a vaccine can do that. A vaccine will lower your risk to very, 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 very low, but it is not a guarantee that you will not get this disease. But it can definitely cause protection, but we have to have a vaccine first. So wear a mask, get a flu shot. The flu is not COVID-19. Um, the virus, SARS-CoV-2, causes the disease, COVID-19. I saw that actually earlier today. Somebody said that they were blaming the hospitals for inventing higher numbers, and somebody responded with, that's not the way it works, whatever, and talked about the virus. And the person said, no, I'm talking about the disease, not the virus. They're essentially one and the same. The virus causes the disease. You can't talk about the disease without talking about the virus, in the sense that you can't say, well, we're cured COVID-19, but we haven't figured out how to beat this SARS-CoV-2 thing yet. That one causes the other in this particular case. So it's ridiculous the amount of backyard doctors that are out there who have literally no idea what they're talking about. I mean, I suppose I could be in that category. Again, I'm not an expert. I'm not a virologist, nor an epidemiologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a biologist. I have a degree in geology. I'm a science educator. But understanding science is so vitally important that just a simple understanding of how science works and the backgrounds of the different disciplines, you can learn a lot and you can have a better understanding of the world around you just by having that basic understanding. And that's all I ask that people have. And that's why I do that's why I do these, so that people do have that basic understanding. So please, please don't do your research. Please stop calling it that, by the way. You're not doing research. You're looking at Google or articles you found through Google that show you what you want to see. I don't do research. I freely admit I don't do research. I look into things. I try to learn about things if I can. If I can't, then I don't talk about them, or at least I defer to the experts if absolutely necessary. But I definitely don't do research. I'm not in a library. I'm not poring over peer-reviewed journals. I'm not. out there interviewing and doing all that sort of stuff. I'm not doing that. Not because I don't want to, but because one, I can't due to my job and my family and everything. But that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to provide basic information about topics dealing with science and science education, and or literacy. That's all I want. I don't do research. So please stop saying, "Oh, do your research," or "I do my research." No, you don't. You're fishing for confirmation bias, and that's not research. Never is, never was. So please stop saying it. That's another little tidbit of advice from me. So get your flu shot, wear a mask, and please stop saying you do research unless you actually are doing legitimate research. Searching on Google for articles is not research. Scanning through YouTube for videos like this is not research. Please don't ever call what I do research. Please don't ever refer to my little videos as I did my research. I look at this guy video. If you want to spread the word of it, yeah, sure, go for it. But don't call it research. Don't say that you learn, that I know everything about what I'm talking about. I don't. But I have a really good understanding again of science and how it works. So today's episode is a little short. It's just one of those things. I missed last week's episode. Things were kind of busy or crazy around here, so here you go. It's something we'll kind of build off of this for next week. All right. So this is Andy Epton to just telling you to be science literate. Please